Now, what we've been talking about, as I said just there at the very beginning, what we've been talking about is conceptual process models. Now, conceptual process models are important because we all have to start somewhere. And when we're trying to understand what we're doing in the business, when we're trying to understand what processes we have, the conceptual models are needed because they let us sketch at a high level. When we say conceptual models, conceptual because it doesn't include all the details that are required for an executable model. But they're important because they let us have a look at the conceptual level of what our business processes look like. And even from just the conceptual models, we can do a lot. So we saw how we can do some qualitative process analysis, some quantitative process analysis, and some redesign, just looking at that conceptual level. Okay, now, because of the purpose of a conceptual business process model, they're abstract in nature. And when we say something's abstract, we mean it doesn't contain all the details. We're looking at a big picture type scenario. They don't provide all the technical details we need if we want to implement a process. Now, you saw that in week 8 when we wanted to execute as a simulation the business process in BIMP. We had to add a lot of technical details, such as resources, when resources were available, how much resources cost on a per hourly basis, what probabilities there were of different branching curves, things like that. So conceptual process models, if we want to make an executable model, what we have to do is we have to systematically rework a conceptual model into an executable process model. So when it's in the final stage, in other words, it's able to be executed and interpreted automatically, then it can be executed by a software system, such as what we were talking about last week. Okay, when we're talking about process-aware models, if you remember, we had the architecture. We looked at that and all the elements in the architecture for executing a model. Now, in your textbook, what your textbook does is your textbook defines a 5-step method to take a conceptual model and then incrementally transform it into one that's executable. Okay, and this is solely using the BPMN language. So what we do as part of this process, the textbook makes use of 2 other standards. So BPMN is 2.0, is an international standard. Now there are other standards as well, and there's 2 complementary standards to BPMN, and these are CMMN, a little bit hard to say 5 times quickly. So CMMN, which is Case Management Model and Notation, and Decision Model and Notation, DMN, which is a bit easier to say. Okay, so BPMN is the main standard we're looking at. 2 complementary standards, CMMN and DMN, Case Management Model and Notation, Decision Model and Notation. Now, the 5 steps to take that conceptual model and then transform it into an executable model. And these are what we're going to be looking at. First, what we have to do is we have to identify automation boundaries. Now that's really important because when we look at any business process model, not everything can be automated. Some things can be automated, some things must remain a manual task. Maybe at the current state, maybe in 10 years' time, technology might fix all that. But at the moment, there will be some things which cannot be automated. So we need to identify where that boundary of automation is. So what we have to do is review the manual tasks. So we identify the automation boundaries, review the manual tasks, because some of the tasks will be manual. Then we complete the process model. We bring the process model to an adequate level of granularity, and we'll talk about that later. All these 5 steps, we're going to talk about these in more detail in the coming slides. So get the process model, identify the boundary, automation boundaries, review the manual tasks, complete the process model, bring the process model to a reasonable level of granularity, and finally, specify execution properties. They're the 5 steps we have to undertake to go from a conceptual model to an executable model.
The Victorian Institute of Technology has other great videos covering many different topics. Please check them out, and thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe the video for more great content like this.